Okay, guys. So after a long wait, it is finally here. The Netflix Avatar adaptation. Before we really get into our thoughts, I guess I kind of want to start with a good origin story because this has been kind of a roller coaster of emotions, of an experience. It all started in 2018 when we were announced about it. And everyone was just, how could they? Did they not learn from that movie? But then, they did this weird twist where they're like, the creators were involved. So everything
Remember
seemed
that.
well
Yeah.
into 2020 when we got the
Mhm.
announcement that the creators were leaving. And that's where we felt like all hope was lost. We were just like, it's over. Why even do this? Why even go forward with this? But then, they did little things like we saw images, we saw the cast, and then they gave us a teaser, and then they gave us a trailer. And despite that, even in this channel, we had some criticisms, we were still at least cautiously optimistic because we saw some potential. But
Yeah.
then they gave us little news here and there, like, hey, Sokka doesn't need to be sexist, or, that whole let's get the whole comet thing, let's kind of get rid of that. Like, that just doesn't work with this series. And, they had some reasons because the actors were aging up. So you can kind of see what they're going through, or even the idea of like, one of the biggest things, Aang's personality, they need him to be more focused. Like, there were little things which, I was like, all right, you know, they're changing it, but it's gonna be different. They said it's a remix, not a remake of an
Right.
adaptation, right?
Yeah.
So after that, and then we had the final trailer, which I was a little bit hyped. So now that all of that's out, now that's all there, we could finally get our piece of it. So now that we finally have it all there, go just initial impressions. What's your thoughts on this? It's summary right now for
I mean, the weight of big expectations ultimately falling on failure. I think that's the theme of Avatar. And honestly, that's the theme of the live action
okay.
adaptations of Avatar. It's like
Okay, okay,
this
I like that.
weight of huge expectations that ultimately, you disappoint people. The only
Okay.
thing is that, our heroes, Aang and Zuko, they eventually rise up to the challenge. It doesn't seem like anybody is able to rise up to the challenge of the live action adaptation. So
Okay.
I guess
Okay.
we'll
Well,
continue to see.
if I describe my feelings and my experience with this live action Avatar adaptation, is how I felt about book 2 of Legend of Korra, where there are a lot of good ideas and there are some standalone episodes. If you just watched it by itself, you would be like, this is pretty good. But when you put it all together, it's just a cluster fuck of a mess.
Hmm.
And it's just there are some things that they did that I feel like is disrespectful to the original source material. So
Hmm.
that's basically the way I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Should we get into the details?
Yeah. So let's
Yeah.
start with the positives because again, I don't want this to be totally stormed out of goodfulness. I don't want to say like it's literally like Emma Shyamalan, the movie. It's definitely not as
It's
bad as the
better.
movie. It
It's
is
better.
way
Yeah.
better
Yeah, for
than
sure.
the movie was. To me, I think for me, the strongest stuff in the series was anything that relates to Fire Nation, specifically Zuko and Iroh stuff. I don't know what it was, but something about the way it was written, the way it was portrayed, it just like I like anytime it was just Zuko Iroh on the screen, it was just good. Like it was just
Mhm.
solid for me. Like
They did have a
they
lot
really
of good
carried.
moments. Yeah,
They really
especially like
carried it.
I think them playing up those moments between Zuko and Iroh, especially like after Luten died, or the
Yes.
funeral,
Yeah.
having those moments that were not in the show, but were like, included to flesh out their relationship and kind of help the audience along to see that like this is the dynamic that exists between Iroh and Zuko. I think they did a really good job including stuff like that. And that's why I say, like, obviously there's some people who really love the source material that were involved in the making of this show. I don't
Yeah.
know if they just had to play tug of war with other people who just didn't care, but that's what it seems like. It feels like there's just like tug of
Yeah.
war between like people who like really cared and like people who just
Yeah.
didn't care at all.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but the as far as like we're still on good stuff.
Yeah.
I'll agree. I think that most of the Fire Nation stuff was done well. I have my question marks around Azula and her
Okay. Yeah.
with Mai and Thai. I'm not sure about them. But I will say like definitely Zuko was a highlight of the show. I will also say that for me, I think Sokka did a good job.
Hmm.
Um, in his the actor for Sokka did a good job in his portrayal. I think that everybody I think given the script and the dialogue that
Hmm.
he had to work with, I think he did
Hmm.
a good job. And I think he was able to incorporate bits of humor in the right places just to, make it good. And then obviously I think everybody is in agreement on the fact that they did a very good job for the most part with the action. The
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
bending
Yeah.
most of the bending was great. Most of the fight choreography was great. There were a
Yeah.
couple of goofy stuff here and there,
Yeah.
but for the most part, they did a great job. I'll give
Yeah.
them that.
Yeah, especially since the last time I was a little skeptical about it. I think it definitely was an improvement from what I saw. Going back to the fighting, I feel like this is why I want to bring up Zuko and Iroh, but mainly Zuko, because Zuko's actor, he's had like a strong fighting choreo, and you could see it.
Yeah,
And I feel like
yeah,
anytime he was on screen, like I'll see a Katara fight scene without Zuko, it was kind of mid. Then you see it with Zuko, and I was like, wow, this is actually a pretty good fight scene. So he
yeah.
made it look really. I feel like that actor himself just made a lot of the fight scenes just look better than what it was.
Which is
But
like,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So there's that. But then even the whole massacre with the Airbenders versus where the Fire Nation's trying to attack them, that was pretty cool. The only
Hmm.
gripe I may have with it is that I feel like the Airbenders could have been a little bit more deadly. Like this is supposed to be a more darker version of this series, and we didn't get to see Airbenders at least try to like do what Zahir did, where they take away the air out of like the Fire
Oh
Nation. Like I
yeah.
thought we were gonna get something like
A
that instead
moment
of
like that
just
would have
some
been
of them just
cool.
getting hit.
Yeah.
Like, but besides that, like it was, yeah, like I agree, the fight scenes were a little bit better. And speaking about fight scenes, and this was actually probably one of my favorite moments in the series. I really love the Ozai versus Zuko fight. Like, there's just what I
Mm.
love about it is there's so many layers of it because they give Ozai is not just this one dimensional. I just want to be a powerful king, which he kind of is, but you actually see that he didn't feel like he was sad when he burned Zuko's eye. He was like, I didn't want to do it, but you fucked up, so I have to just
Mm.
burn your eye. Which
Mm.
to me, like, it gave him more layers to him. So it was like there's just a lot
Yeah.
to, like I said, like, and it hurts me because when I start talking bad about this show, you're gonna realize
Yeah.
it cuts even further now. But yeah, there's things like that, and I agree with you. And for the most part, with Sokka and a lot of, and even Aang to an extent, like a lot of the actors, at least they nail the personalities for the most part. Like
Mm.
if the performances is not the best for some of them the personalities is like, okay, this feels like Aang, this feels like Sokka, this feels like Katara, it feels like Iroh, it feels like personality wise, right? Writing we'll get into. Writing is going to be a different
Okay.
story for some of these characters, but it feels like that. So, and then visuals, and I won't forget the visuals
Yeah, yeah,
really nailed it. Like
absolutely.
made me feel like I want to be in that world.
I will say I think that the costume design for the waterbenders should have been a little bit more. I feel like it was a little too clean.
Oh
I
yeah,
think it should have been a little bit more dirty and like lived in. I think it was but yeah, I think generally speaking that is a highlight, like a high point for this show is like the costume design, the settings,
yeah,
all of that stuff.
yeah,
Um
yeah.
yeah. So um any other positive there the I think that the Blue Spirit episode
Oh yes,
was probably the
the
strongest
the
episode.
best episode. And
Yeah.
funny enough about the Blue Spirit episode, in the first episode, it actually had the creators involved in it. So if you look at the
Oh,
writing, they were involved in that.
okay.
So
Okay.
that's another interesting thing. But yeah, the Blue Spirit episode is to me the best episode there, my favorite episode, and that's the episode that like I can rewatch that episode and I'll be fine. Like if I honestly
Mm,
feel like if you're an Avatar: The Last Airbender and you're curious about this, I would recommend to watch that episode and you at least be like, okay, this is the adaptation. Like this is okay. Like own it out, whatever. Like if I were to
yeah.
watch that episode, I'd be like, why would anybody hate this show? This is not that bad, you know? But yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
uh
Yeah. So that was a good episode then, and they did a good job for the most, part
yeah,
of those things that we just
that's
mentioned.
up. And I think one more is the CGI. Some of the CGI was like what they did with the spirits and Havi and all that stuff. And
Yeah,
yeah,
that's fair.
yeah, that was good. And even some of the callbacks, like they even called back like with what's his name? Havi. That's the no, not Havi. What's his name? Coldus, the face stiller.
Oh,
They yeah, they actually took something from the comics, which is the whole the his mom,
the
the
totem.
totem, that is actually from the comic books themselves.
Oh,
So they
interesting.
actually took lore from that and added into it. So that was interesting that they brought that up in there. So
Interesting.
so that was actually interesting that they brought that up. And like I said, that's sort of, I mean, there's a lot of questions why they added it there versus
Yeah.
later, but same time, I kind of do like that they took little details from other sources material and bring it in there. So I'll appreciate that. So
Yeah.
that would be my, I guess, last positive for it before we start really getting to
um
the dark side.
yeah, yeah, we talked about costume, the Kyoshu Warriors, great costume design, all of that
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah, I guess we can go into like our criticisms.
Yeah.
So like middle of the road, like I definitely I think it was a good idea for them to combine certain storylines in the way that they did. Having a lot of things happen in Omashu, I think was smart, but I don't appreciate some of the decisions that they made with that. I think having
Yeah.
Jet's storyline combined with Omashu was a good call. I don't think it was a good call having the engineer storyline involved with Omashu, because now we don't get the air acolytes. Like
Yeah.
now they're just completely out of this season, and like they're
Yeah.
kind of important in just like the whole like background of the show. It's just weird that there's this like one family who's able to use the
Yeah.
gliders,
The
and like
glider stuff.
nobody else is using it. Like
No one
it
else is
makes more
using.
sense if there's a community of them and they've like
Yeah.
kind of figured out how to
Yeah,
do this.
exactly.
They're
Yeah.
studying
Yeah.
the air nomad the airbenders and like figuring that stuff out.
Yeah.
But like just one guy is like, okay, I guess maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So I don't like that they combined his storyline with it. um
Yeah.
and then I really hated how they did the face stealer. Like
Mm.
honestly, when I think about first season of Avatar: The Last Airbender, that's one of my, I think like especially watching that episode as a kid, like
Yeah.
it's so impactful, like the impression of watching and
Mm.
the whole game of with
Mm.
the face stealers, that Aang is warned that he's not supposed to show emotion
Exactly.
or else he gets his face
Exactly.
stolen. And that was
Exactly.
just completely gone. Like, so it's like, what is
Exactly.
the
No, no,
point of
he knew to not have emotion. He just went there. He's like, "Hello, Ko," and all that stuff. Like he just knew it. Like nobody told
Yeah,
him. He just knew it. Just I
yeah,
don't know, out of instinct. Like
out
it's
of
just
instinct.
weird.
It
Like
was like,
whatever.
and so honestly, I like, you warned me about like how the treatment of Bumi was gonna
Oh,
like make me
don't,
mad.
dude.
But like,
Dude, that's its own rant.
honestly, I think I got more angry with how they did like,
Okay.
because I was anticipating, I was like hoping to see this like live action version of, because that whole like the whole introduction, that's supposed to be like our introduction into the spirit world, and it's this like cunning, you have to stay on your feet, you're not sure or
Exactly.
certain the dangers that are around the corner,
Mm,
and you're being played with by these spirits that are all around you. And they kind of just like took that out for like, oh, it's just like,
yeah.
he captured his friends. Also, okay, that was another thing. The avatar all of a sudden has some upgrades in this live action version. The avatar can see into the
Oh
future,
yeah, he can.
and the avatar can bring normal people into the spirit world.
Oh yeah, they could just do that automatically. Yeah, there's
Like
no
accidentally. Like what?
no, no. Kiyoshi, the way the Avatar sees the future is Kiyoshi knew the plot. She watched the original series. She's like, oh, by the way, this
Apparently,
is
because like, what do you mean? There's gonna be an attack in the Northern Water Tribe. Like, how do you know that? How can you possibly know that? You're a spirit. Like, what do you? Like, since when are you able to look into the future and tell people what's gonna happen? Who told you that? Oh my god. Oh my god.
oh my god,
So
oh my god,
there was
man.
just a lot, like and like also that they can combine the blue spirit storyline with the Heibai storyline,
Mhm.
which I get the desire to combine the storylines, but it didn't work in my opinion. That didn't work. They took too much out and they
Yeah,
sacrificed too much to try to have
yeah.
that be a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I agree with a lot. I feel like again, most of my problems goes with Team Avatar and the way, like I said, the way they're written. Like
Mhm.
Katara and I mean, I guess we already spoiled it. So Katara becomes a waterbending master, but yet she only just uses a scroll. Like it's just like, and the way Katara was written, the original one was like she had this strong personality. She was in
Yeah.
your face. It like made sense. She was like challenging norms. This one is just like I feel like this could have been Jinoria. Like she just sounds like Jinoria to me. Just like, hey, you got to do all this other things. So
Yeah.
it's like the way they're
Yeah.
written is just really poor. Aang, as much as I was okay with this idea, Aang being more serious, the problem with it is like he doesn't really have a character flaw. So they keep on bringing up this whole, oh, in the past you did this thing, you screwed things up. But the problem is in this version of the show, Aang, the reason why he left in this version is to clear his head. It wasn't like he was trying to abandon his duties. He actually just wanted to clear his head.
That's
Versus the
true.
original one, he
That's
was
true.
actually trying to avoid it. So it's like
Yeah.
they're trying
He
to
was
blame him
actually
for
running
something.
away.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
actually running away. So this one, it's like they're trying to bring up that him clearing his head was a bad idea when he wasn't trying to abandon his duties. So it just doesn't make any sense that they're like
Yeah.
bringing this whole character thing and then bringing this like saying this is a character flaw versus the original. It made sense where it's like, okay, he's trying to have fun and this
Mhm.
like it just it's just even a weaker version of the storytelling whatsoever. And then oh my god, like the Boomy thing really like pissed me off the most because it's like first you make him okay, first he's jaded. First it's like he's this jaded person. All right, fine, you have a jaded Boomy. But then he wants to like at one point he was gonna kill Aang. Like he was just comfortable killing Aang. And I'm like, how could Boomy, who was like one of the closest friends to Aang, just feel comfortable? But what was the most disrespectful part of all of it was Sokka was able to just slap him. Like he literally gets bitch slapped by Sokka. Like he just literally he just stands there,
Oh
gets
my
slapped by Sokka, and then he
gosh.
says at the end he goes, "No fair. You got your friends to help you." Like what the heck? And it's like, all right, fine. They want to write Boomy differently. That's fine. But my problem with the whole conflict between Aang and Boomy is that their ideals make no sense. One minute Boomy's saying, Aang, you're immature. Next minute, Aang saying you're immature. And it's like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like it's like they're
Yeah.
both switching sides of the ideal conflict. So the writing is even weirder. And then it's just there's like you said, there's just things that don't even make sense with the Kyoshi thing. Like, why Kyoshi? Like, wouldn't it make sense that Avatar Roku, the one who his
Yeah.
friend becomes like, did no one think, hey, why not contact the last Avatar
Who was
whose
a
friend was responsible
firebender.
for this? Like, it doesn't, like, maybe you could say they're trying to hide that, but it still doesn't make any sense. If it's like they want Aang to be more mature and more about his duties, why
Mhm.
not have that Avatar to him? And even which is so ridiculous about Aang being more mature about his duties, how come he doesn't try to learn any bending? He doesn't know
Yeah.
any bending in
Yeah.
the whole
Yeah.
series.
What
Like,
was
what?
that? What was that about?
What
Like why? Who chose to say
shows
that,
this?
hey, he's not gonna learn any bending yet? Why?
Why?
What
Like,
reason? Like he's supposed to be, this is the book one is water. Book one is water. Like this is what he's supposed to be doing this season. And he's like, nah, I'm too I'm too sad that
Okay, yeah, he
monkey
says
yachts
that,
are
which is
not.
stupid.
Yeah,
But then what's even makes me more stupid is when he gets to Northern Water Tribe, there's a scene where they're like, so do you know any more elements? And he's like, oh, I only know airbending. And I'm like, Paku, you're a waterbending master. Why didn't you just teach him at that moment? Like, what? He just, oh, they don't know anything. Meh. Like,
yeah,
what?
yeah.
Like, it's just, it doesn't make any sense.
It's
That's
so
my
bad.
problem with this. It's like if you're gonna make changes, fine, but at least make them make logical sense with the thing.
Yes,
Like
yeah,
that's my thing. Like if you're gonna make it not make sense, that's what where the problems come in. It like I wanted to not compare it to the original, but it's so hard when number one they do scenes that are exactly like the original, but number two it just doesn't make any sense. Like
yeah,
it's like it kills the disbelief. Like I'm just having a hard time believing a lot of things, and I'm just like, geez, even with Sokka's sexism, and this is something that's interesting because like when I first heard about it, I even made a video kind of defending saying like, you know what, Sokka's sexism was only a minor thing in the series. You could at least like if they took it out, you doesn't mean they take away the whole Sokka learning how to be less like basically it's challenging his pre-notions about society, whatever. Like just taking the sexism out, you could still have that. But in this version, when they took it out, they didn't do anything that challenges pre-notions. Instead, it just felt like Suki was the one who learned, oh man, there's some outsiders out here. Well, I'm a horny girl who hasn't got some acting. I can finally get to release some acting. I'm like, what?
yeah,
So that's
yeah,
what's going on with it. It just, I don't
yeah.
know. It's just, that's the thing. I just say why to a lot of these decisions. Like, what person would think this was the right way to go? And it's like they just made a hollow version of the show. Like when characters had more nuance and depth, complexity, they just made a
Mhm.
hollow version of our characters. And it's just like, I don't know. It's just, it's
It's
sad.
sad. It's sad. I think one of the things that I also one of the things that I was also like I brought up earlier how they spent like 20 minutes on the whole massacre of the Airbenders. And then I had that I was thinking like, okay, what are we getting instead of this? Or what are we missing like for this to happen? And then that happened again, especially with the Heibai episode
Yeah.
where they're all having these different hallucinations
Mm-hmm.
about like stuff and like none of this is important. Like we don't need to see Sokka getting disappointed about like the stuff here overhearing his dad, and we don't need to see Katara having to relive her mom dying over and over again. And then like all of this stuff that's going on, it's like, okay, so instead of having like a full like episode with Heibai and Co and all of that stuff, you
Yeah.
decided to put this stuff in. We also didn't get like super important characters like Haru. Like Haru was just
Yeah.
not in this season at all. And it's like you could have introduced his character, maybe tied his
Yeah.
character in with like the Omashu stuff instead of having
Yeah. That would make more
the
sense.
the engineer there like as a third like storyline. You could have Haru and like have Jet be a storyline and then have the have Bumi be the other story. Like that could have
Yeah.
been that episode. I do think that the whole Jet storyline was
It was weaker
rushed.
because my problem with the Jet, see, one thing, the lesson of the Jet storyline was to show us that not every Fire Nation person was evil. The problem here is that in this version, it's just him trying to attack anybody who works for the Fire Nation, versus in the original version, it was like,
That's
okay, just
right.
because they're Fire Nation's people, we shouldn't attack them. That was the
Yeah,
thing. So to me, it was more weaker here because that was the
yeah,
main lesson behind it. So it's
that's
just like,
true. That's true.
and if that's the case, they might as well literally have taken the Jet storyline. Like I would have rather have him learn, because the John thing where he tries to learn fire, I would have rather had that adapted here than the Jet storyline,
That's true.
which I
That
hated because one of my favorite lines in the series was when Roku says, "I've mastered element 1,000 times in 1,000 lifetimes." Like that was so powerful as a scene to have
was
that.
that in season 1 or season 2?
That was in season 1 when he
Oh
tries to learn
wow.
firebending
Dang.
and he burns Katara.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because, and the reason why John's jaded is because he taught what's his name? What's his name? I keep on forgetting his name now. Um the other Commander Zhao.
Oh, Commander
He was
Zhao.
Commander Zhao's
But
student.
they made Commander Zhao like that's another thing. Okay, they made Commander Zhao like an idiot.
Yeah,
Like
he's pathetic. I
he's
don't know why I was thinking of what's his name from Community. The what's his name? Chang. Like he reminds me of Chang from Community. It was
no,
like
they
they just got
because
Community
like
Chang.
in the original series, Commander Zhao is like an intimidating figure. Like he's
Yeah.
actually capable. He's actually like somebody who you're like, oh, you don't really want to mess with Zhao that much. But then here he's just like, oh, he's like a washed up just guy who's like relegated to this like no name part of the world so that he can, not get in anybody's way. And like
Hmm.
that's who he is in the show. And it's like, okay, I guess now he can't, like, if you're like, oh, his firebending masters is Zhang Zhang, he's like, okay, that doesn't really mean anything anymore
Yeah.
because he's not like an imposing guy.
Yeah.
um yeah, no, it's so interesting, the things that they chose to keep and the things that they chose to take
Yeah.
out, and then the things that they chose to create out of nowhere.
Exactly. The things, the lore that they create out of nowhere and things that just didn't make any sense. I mean, I don't know. With one change that was interesting to me, which I didn't really hate, but I thought was interesting, was how they portrayed Roku. Because Roku's more like a goofball. Like he was just
Mm,
like, and on one hand, I kind of like that they gave him a different personality, but on the other hand, you know what would have made more sense to be a goofball was the waterbending avatar. And if
Kuruk,
you understood
yeah,
his story, it made
yeah.
sense because he didn't have to deal with anything with human war, and it was
Hmm.
all about his girl being taken and everything. So it's just, and I don't know. There's just, even with the story, there's so much repetitiveness because then he goes to help for Kuruk, and Kuruk says, "I don't want to help him." And then Kuruk goes back and says, "By the way, I gotta warn you about this problem." And it's like, wait, didn't you warn about Kyoshi? Like, what the heck?
Yeah,
Like, it's just, I don't know. It's just so many things that just don't make too much sense. And I'm just curious if partially their aim when they were making this was like, okay, we want the hardcore fans, and then we know that we have to appeal to some Netflix outside audience. So I wonder if how much these decisions were like, maybe they feel like the Netflix audience who are not familiar with the show needed a something like, okay, the water tribe is going to get destroyed if Aang doesn't go and hurry and get there, something like that, to make it appealing. Like, I wonder how much of that was influence to the show. But to
mm,
me, it still doesn't make any sense because, again, during COVID, the original show was one of like the top shows
yeah,
of the whole thing. So how
yeah,
much did they really need to change? Like, it's just, and the last biggest problem, and people's mentioned this, and it still hurts the show, like, is there's just too much telling and not showing. Like, you
yeah.
hear this moment where Aang is all like, "Oh, I just love throwing uh I like throwing uh eggs at people, blah blah blah." Why didn't they just show that to us?
Yeah,
Like, why couldn't they show us? So many means scenes could have been so much compelling that if they would just show us, you know what I'm saying? They just show us instead of
they
just
just
telling
had
us.
exposition all the time, as far as just like, yo, if there's anything happening, let's pause for a second and explain
Yeah,
to the
exactly,
audience
exactly,
what's
exactly.
going on. Nah, yeah, it
Yeah, it's
was,
just, yeah,
yeah, it's
it
disappointing.
it is sad, man. And I first thought, my problem was when I first saw the first episode, I thought it was gonna be minor. I was gonna be like, oh, Aang can just fly, so forget that whole let go of your earthly tether,
I
enter the
disagree
void
with
to hear
that.
stuff.
I don't think that he was flying. I think that they just had him like floating and like falling like softly. I don't think it was the same flight
The
that we
part when he
have with
was looking for
Secure.
Appa, where he's like, "Where's my bison,
Yeah, he
Appa?"
had a tornado under him.
So
I don't
whatever.
I don't think it's the same as like, Superman flight. Like
Okay,
Zakir had
okay,
Superman
okay,
flight.
okay,
Like
whatever.
it's not the
Okay,
same.
okay. That, and then I also felt like the earthbending, I don't know, earthbending, the movements are a little bit lazy. Like, I literally, in the beginning scene, as cool as it was for him to see the earthbender, or to see that earthbender get away from the Fire Nation, he's literally just going like this, where in the original show there was more of a stance. And I just don't see that even with the earthbending fight that Iroh had. Like, there's less of a stance and power to earthbending. It just seems like they're just like, all right, do this movement, you can throw a rock easily.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I thought it would be minor like that, but then it just got major big story details. And I'm just worried about, because as much as I do like the Zuko and Iroh stuff, and I would love to see how that would be adapted in season 2, with everything with Team Avatar, I'm so worried about it. And it just seems like it's gonna be a bad note because Aang still needs to master waterbending. He still needs to gonna know have to do earthbending. They said they're gonna have a 2-year time skip because the actors are getting old, but it doesn't make sense with their lore because if this Aang is supposed to be more serious, I don't know how is he not going to figure out the whole Bumi thing being kidnapped by Azula, which they should have waited later for, but they just did it early. So it's like
Yeah.
there's so many things that just it's already story wise going to fall pretty flat in the beginning. So I don't know. I'm worried about what they're going to put for season 2. I mean, I don't. It seems so mixed. I don't know if they're going to have a season 2, but it's just man.
It's sad. It's sad. It's like I had hope. I wanted to hold on to hope for a while, but yeah, I mean, and you go back to our video that we did just before this about our expectations for the show, and one of our chief concerns was about the action. Like that's what it seemed like based on the trailers. Like, oh, I don't know how the action is gonna look, blah blah blah. But weirdly enough, the action was the best part of the show. Everything else is what sucks.
One of the best parts. Yeah, it was. It was. So yeah.
What did you think about the fact that they instead decided to bring Wang Shitan into?
Yeah, that was my bigger problem because I'm just thinking to myself, why is he not in that library? Like, it doesn't make any sense for it. So my thing, and that's how I knew that when Wan Xishan was there, I knew, okay, they're not going to incorporate Zhao getting the scrolls from the library anymore, realizing the mood. Instead, the fire sages just have these scrolls that tell them all this stuff, which I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It's just a weird change or whatsoever. Like, they really didn't need. I really feel like that was just the callback for the fans. Just like the cave. Like, why even have the secret lovers?
Yeah, they should have taken that out. They should have taken that out. Keep the band, but like take out the cave.
Yeah, they could have just kept the band and took out the cave. So like that adaptation, which it would have been fine, but even then it didn't feel earned because the moment where they realized that love is the key, I didn't feel like Katara and Sokka had that brother sisterly love at that moment. It seemed like it was fear, and then all of a sudden it was just like, oh, Sokka, it's about love at the last second. I'm just like, not believable whatsoever. So
yeah. I think that the final battle, I think it was good, although I was disappointed with the fact that we never got a Zuko and Aang moment.
Oh,
how Zuko captures Aang. And,
and that's another line that I like. That I wish. Okay, I know that there's an adaptation, and they even had a Zuko and Aang moment in the Blue Spirit. But if they knew they weren't gonna have Zuko and Aang at the ending, I wish he brought up that scene where he says the whole, "Oh, you and my sister were born lucky. Well, I was lucky to be born." Like that was one of the greatest lines, as well as described his personality as a character. Like Jesus, like. I don't know. This goes back to what I said. What were they thinking? What, like, if you had so many decisions, why did you not use these? Like, these were powerful moments. It's just
right. No, that's absolutely right. Like it's like, but the moments that they did have, like, just that made me cringe right now. Like as I was thinking about it, the whole when they're confronting when Zuko is confronting Katara and Aang is like, go easy on her.
Oh my god, right? Screw that line.
Why would you think he was talking to you? like what was that supposed to be? And it's like, and they never really they touched on it a little bit, but the fact that like that whole battle is supposed to be so interesting because you see how Katara has developed over the course of this first season, And I think like they did a fine job, I guess, developing Katara's waterbending throughout the season. Like she got better and better. I think it was just, a little bit difficult that you couldn't judge based on like passage of time, but time is going. So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, she's getting better and better. So we're seeing that. And I think that the fact that they should have like focused on the fact that like with the moon and nighttime she's super
Yes,
strong with her
exactly.
bending, and then once the sun comes up, like
Exactly.
then the tide of that battle between that first battle between Katara
Exactly.
and Zuko turns, and then Zuko gets the upper hand. Like that should have
Exactly.
been, oh man.
Exactly. Because that explains why Zhao wants to destroy the moon.
Exactly.
Like,
It like feeds into this. Like they did this already. Like they already did the story. You just needed to not mess it up. Oh
oh
man.
my gosh.
Oh, and even the way that Zhao decided to kill the moon spirit, like, oh, why did he stab it? Like, you're a
Or
firebender.
oh my god, I don't even want to go to that scene because if you remember that scene, Aang is airbending, and for some reason it's so slow enough that Zhao has the time to actually go and stab the spirit.
Yeah.
That makes no sense. Like, because in the original he firebended it, which kind of makes
Yeah,
sense.
and like there's a cool image where you have like the koi fish in the pond, and he like releases the koi fish after Iroh does his
Yeah.
like threatening, has his
Exactly.
threatening moment. He releases the
Exactly.
koi back into the pond, and then like at the last second he firebends and kills the moon spirit. And you have this like super cool picture of the dead koi fish being like circled by the ocean spirit
Yeah,
koi fish.
exactly.
And it's just like similar to what you said, like this was just like a hollow representation of the show. Uh
Exactly.
it was basically the the play version
Yeah,
of
literally, it's the play version with a
after the
little
last
bit of
Airbender.
it's like if the play version in CW created their own version of Avatar, this would it be where I was just thinking every time they bring up Aang's trauma, it feels like the arrow. Oh, Oliver, you did this thing. Well, on that island. Oh,
Oh
Aang,
yeah.
you abandoned us, and he's like, well, I don't know. I had to clear my
There's
head.
so many like like oh Zhao's like, oh, do you know what it would be like to wipe out an entire race of benders? It's like, yeah, I do know.
Exactly. Yes, I do
Oh
know. It's like
man.
it's just
Can
oh
you just
god.
like spell it out for everybody in the
Exactly.
back of the classroom who's
Literally,
just
that
not
was
paying
yeah,
attention?
exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe the show is just called Avatar for Dummies. That's what this is. It's just, hey, hey, Sokka, why are you upset? Well, I was told that I have to prove myself as a man. So, I'm upset because you're making me think about that proving myself moment. And it's just I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't get over the fact that this show is being motivated. This whole Aang's being motivated or feeling guilty because he took a break for just, hey, let me clear my head. That's literally like, imagine OC, I went to use the restroom and then my whole family is killed. And then everything is like, if you didn't use the restroom, your family wouldn't be dead. So don't use the
Yeah.
restroom. Like, it's just dumb. Like,
It's
come
bad.
on.
It's bad. It's bad.
It's
It's
just
bad.
bad. I don't know, man. It's just sad. And it was interesting because I wanted to really figure out like because I was just thinking to myself, partially why at least I can get some enjoyment from it was because at least I had the view of the original show, so I knew what they were trying to do. So I
Yeah.
was just thinking to myself, could someone who never seen the series before, could they at least get some, I guess, appeal from it? And from my understanding, and I was asking like some of my friends who they know people who this is their first time seeing it, it seems like a lot of people, and even I talk to people about it, it seems like a lot of people really enjoy it. But I guess it's because the concept of the nations is just so cool to them that even with the piss storytelling, it's like, well, I like the concept of people having elements and there's a tribe and all this stuff. And I guess
All right.
I don't know, I guess that's the thing. And I guess it's like I don't know if we live in like the Avatar, the show has forced us to have more critical writing skills and think of good storytelling, but I guess some people it's just the concept alone is just good enough for them to enjoy this kind of material regardless of the lackluster story. So it's just I don't know, it's very interesting to see that even with a bad version of a series. This series is Avatar is so good that you can make a bad version of it and it still would be appealing to people. I think the biggest thing that hurts this show, and I know they wanted to make it more dark and dramatic, but I feel like one thing that the humor added to Avatar is that they did a lot of, and it's funny because they're all like, we want to be like Game of Thrones, but one big element that made Game of Thrones appealing was subverting your expectations, and Avatar did that a lot. Like
The
that's why
original
the Bumi
yeah.
thing pissed me off the most, because
Yeah.
the whole point of Bumi was subverting your expectations. You
Yeah.
think this was supposed to be one way and then it goes the other way. And I honestly thought that was what they were going to do with Bumi, where all of this was a test and he was going to say, you know what, I actually was going to help your friends. But no, they didn't do that at all. It was just, yeah, he really was crazy and he really wanted to kill Aang. And Sokka slapping him in the face was just him getting caught off guard. It's just, and that's the thing. It's just that was an element of the show, that there was a lot of twists. There were a lot of things that, you know, though even within tropes, like it was almost self-aware of like, this is the trope we were doing, and then we're gonna twist it. You know, we're gonna have a little twist and spin, but you don't get that at all in this series. And it's just, to me, it's just a generic. It's just, we just took generic tropes and put it with benders. That's basically what this is. This isn't a subvert your only twist or add our own spin to it. So
yeah, it's Azula and her trio of friends, or her duo of friends. I understand them wanting to introduce Azula into this season, even though she's not supposed to be introduced until season 2. I don't necessarily have a problem with them wanting to, you know, make us an Azula storyline, but I don't think it served. I don't think it like added anything to the story.
Yeah. In fact, if anything, I'm not a big fan of this whole Azula trying to prove herself to Ozai, because again, one of the biggest things that like, created the whole thing with Zuko was Azula was known as this perfect prodigy. Yes. And her only problem that she had was that even though she was considered perfect, her mom didn't love her. So it was her feeling like, what's wrong with me? That was the big thing that drive it. This being like, oh, because I want to, like, it, again, I guess this is where the Game of Thrones comes in, where it's like, oh, I want to have the throne, so I need to look like I'm better, or, you know, all this stuff. Like, Zuko doesn't deserve the throne, kind of a thing. I don't know, just
like Ozai's like pitting the two of them against each other.
Exactly. It's like
in the original, like Ozai, like the favorite is Azula.
Exactly. Is the favorite. Exactly. That was the whole point. But I don't know. I don't know. I didn't really like that, and adding those characters didn't really do much. And then again, even the ending with Omashu, which I know it gets kidnapped, but for it to happen early on and then she's like, what's next? I love the whole mystery where it was like, at the real ending, it was like she tells Azula, like, or like, I have a task for you, and then it's like, we're like, dun dun dun. And it's just like, I feel like Azula, if they should have kept her, they shouldn't have gave an arc. They should have just kept her more mysterious. Like, I'm okay with the scene where she pretended to pretend that she was part of that Fire Nation, those people who were against the Fire Lord. I was okay with that, and that to me is another positive, where at least they showed that there were people who didn't just follow the Fire Lord. There were people who actually went against it, so I do appreciate that. So I was against that because that fit within her character, but to give her that whole arc is just, they should have just kept her like this mysterious character and then add more.
We could have had Haru instead.
Yeah, exactly. The screen time with Haru, even if it's a one scene with Haru. Hey guys, I'm Haru.
Something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know. And then, like, what was the point of having Mai and Thai there? Like, they didn't do anything. Like, it's
just cameos, man. It's just
cameos. It's like Thai is supposed to be like a super,
exactly,
athletic, acrobatic gymnast, and then Mai is like, has her knives and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Like, we didn't see anything like at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, man. I don't know, man. It's a mess, and it's just sad because one of the shows that we really love, and to me, again, because I know a lot of people, the conclusion is this is the reason why live action adaptations don't work. It's because of XYZ. But To me, my problem with this one is like I would have been okay with a lot of things. Like we understand there's limitations. Like obviously you
Yeah.
can't do too much with Appa and MOMO because of CGI, what that. But I would have
Oh
been
my
okay.
God. You just reminded me of the whole MOMO like moment at the end, but like, yeah, keep
Oh
going.
yeah, that was
Keep
so
going.
dumb. Yeah, that was just dumb. The petty MOMO
The
thing.
yeah, the whole like having them like pause the story to like take Momo to like a healing
Oh yeah, because the
like
show that the
fund,
waterbenders can heal and all that
but
stuff.
like there's actual soldiers dying.
Exactly.
Like
They-
there's actual soldiers dying right now, and we're taking this moment for I like we love Momo, but like this version of Momo is just a lemur. Like
yeah,
there's
he
nothing
is.
special about this version
This
of
is yeah,
Momo.
exactly.
It's like, why is this happening? Oh my
Exactly,
gosh.
man. Just to show that they can heal. It's a dumb way to get them to heal. And what my point was, I was gonna say, like, I would forgive a lot of these things if they just had a tighter written story. Like, I would have
Yeah.
just been like, okay, you know what?
Yeah.
This is all they did. It sucks that we couldn't have these things. They couldn't expand on these things, but you could have just have a tighter written story. And
Yeah.
they have, and for me, I feel like they have the means to do it. It's not like they're on incapable people. I don't know what it is. Like whether they were just like in a rush, whether they just didn't really care too much. It just to me, it felt like they just I don't know. It just felt very lazy. Like I said, like a lot of the fact that they use exposition, the fact that they don't choose to use certain shots and all that stuff. And again, like even with the shots, like the Aang thing, it doesn't have to be that long. Like I literally I rewatched the clip where he's explained his whole when he figures out that he's the Avatar, and it's like it shows him with the airbending kids, and the kids used to play with him, and he doesn't play with them. That whole sequence, all that was like 3 minutes. They could have put that in the beginning. 3 minutes of that instead of him having that talk of Gyatso of what he did. You could have did
Yeah.
that. It still would have
Yeah.
felt compelling. It still would have went as great. And I don't. Again, I just don't get it. I don't know why they did it. I don't know what the shots is. I don't know what's going on. It just seemed like they didn't really care too much about the things that actually worked, and they just cared about other superficial things.
What it is about some of these Netflix shows, but I think that I don't know if they're just like they're using the same cinematographer, but a lot of the like head heavy shots, like where it's like the head is like superimposed in like the foreground, and like the like everything else in the background is like kind of like zoned, like zoomed out or zoomed in, zoomed out. But
Mhm.
like it's like a weird thing. Like it was similar, it felt very similar to the some of the shots in One Piece,
Mhm.
which I think it worked in One Piece just because One Piece is like goofier as
Yeah.
as a story, so I didn't necessarily mind it there. But
Mhm.
then it also reminded me of, I don't know if you watched a series of unfortunate events that
I think it,
Netflix.
yeah, I think I've seen.
Yeah, it like, and so I don't know why, like, I don't know if they're just reusing the same cinematography team or people or
Yeah,
whatever,
probably.
but it's just like it feels like it didn't work. I didn't
Yeah.
like it. I didn't like that
Yeah.
whole, it didn't match with like Last Airbender.
Yeah.
It didn't match.
Yeah. And that's the thing with some of the fights, that as much as I like the fights, there were moments where I feel like it was edit where they would just cut off things a little too much, or they'll add slow-mo, which if you speed up, like I actually fast forward some of the fights where they had the slow-mo, and it looked a lot more better and smoother when it was speed up, as
Mm.
opposed to when they did this like overly slow-mo stuff with the fights. So it's weird things like that, or even with the edits, like the part with the fire people who were against Ozai. And I remember that scene a lot because what's his name from Supernatural, Kevin Tran, was in it. Even that scene where it's like you see him get burned, you don't see other people get burned. So the way it's edited, it's like
Oh,
you just all of a sudden they're gone, and it's like
yeah,
it's just weirdly edit like that, where it's just
yeah.
like people just disappear because of the way it's just edited like that. So it's just even things like that just seems weird, because Avatar is known for having like wider shots. Like the show itself is known for doing wide angles, wide shots. You see a lot
Yeah.
of things. So for it to be so claustrophobic just seems a little bit weird and distance for it.
It's
So
just off. Yeah, very claustrophobic, definitely,
yeah,
with the way that they shot some of those scenes.
they have the elements of Avatar, but no, but not the spirit. That's the problem here.
Yeah.
The elements are there, but there's no spirit. So it's like,
yeah, it's sad. It's sad all
it's a
around.
sad thing. It's a sad thing. As I said before, I don't know if I want a season. I mean, part of me wants to see what happens with the Fire Nation stuff with Uncle Iroh and Zuko, because I really like what they did. But at the same time, Team Avatar, if this is them, I don't want to know what's going to happen with Toph. I don't want to know what's going to happen with Bonsi Say. I'm already scared.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah,
it sucks.
Yeah, man.
But, hey, if you guys have seen Avatar: The Last Airbender Netflix live action and you have thoughts, you can definitely put them down in the comments below.
Yeah.
I've decided to not try to encourage anybody to watch this. If anybody asks, I'll be like, hey, you'll watch it if you want to. But yeah, I don't think it's worth I don't know if it's worth it, honestly, to like watch 8 episodes of this.
I personally think besides the first episode and the episode of Blue Spirit, I don't think anything else is worth watching. If anything, just watch clips. I think clips would be the best thing to say. It's like, hey, this is their version of it. So
clips of the fight scenes, yeah.
So yeah, clips of the fight scenes, especially the Zuko versus Ozai fight. I think that itself was just a beautiful moment. And that's something I would like to explore in a future video and explain why that fight was like the best thing of the series. So
for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section down below. Peace.